The three things that I learned was that you have to have great service, a great product, and then great financials. And that's kind of like the key for every business. If you don't have those three things, you will never make it. If you're really treating your customers like crap and you're not really living through that promise, you're not going to build a brand.
As a brand new business, you need to build that trust in the consumer's eyes. And if you as the owner are the only one talking about the business, it's like, hey, does he just want to take my money for the business, or is his food actually that good? But if you have Forbes, New York Times, and all of these trustworthy publications talking about your business, it breaks that boundary of trust very, very quickly. Is there anything that you would leave our listeners with, some advice to shift their mindset of what they need to really go after their goals?
When you think
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast. Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we can discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and itself. Today, we have Joe Fontana, the owner of Fry the Coop, a chicken sandwich shop that fries everything in beef tallow. Excited to talk with Joe about his unique angle on how he runs Fry the Coop and the 9 locations, about to be 10 across Illinois. Thank you, Joy, for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Dude, I'm super pumped. There's, when I get on these podcasts, and for the entrepreneurs and the business owners listening right now, I do a lot of vetting before we hop on the podcast. I dive through the social media, I dive through the website, try to learn a little bit more. And it's awesome to see an individual like yourself being the attractive character of your locations. And what I mean by that for the listeners is he's on his social media. I saw his face 100 times before we even hopped on here, talking about the business, the unique selling propositions, how it's different, the unique products that you're having. And it's a beautiful thing to see, Joe. It truly is. Can you give us a little bit of background of how this whole thing got started, how you got into this position of now about to be opening your 10th location, and really the why behind why you do this?
No, 100%. Thank you. And I just literally couldn't stand working in corporate America. And I found myself going from bartender, serving, like being with people, being a people person, into an office job that I just couldn't stand. And about 6 years after doing that, I just kind of looked around. I was like, I need to do something with my life, something that was meaningful, that something I could be proud of, passionate about. And I was living in California at the time, just looking up at all these houses on the top of the mountains. And I'm like, how do I get into one of those houses? And literally I found out, although that guy sold that business, that girl was, sold her business. So it was just all these business owners, living in these mansions on top of the hills in California. And I was like, oh, so I got to start a business. All right. And that was like my first idea. And basically, I kind of did some soul searching of what I loved. I love food. I love serving people. I love just that care and love and hospitality. And I just started working towards opening up a restaurant. And we were living in California at the time. My wife and I, we started having kids. And that was kind of the pressure of like, hey, I need to make some money here to, support my family. And so that was kind of like my real motivation. My big why was like, I need to, be the creator of my own destiny. I did not want to, I kept going to my boss's office. Hey, I need a raise, and he'd be like, well, we can't do it at this time. And I was like, if I work harder and harder and harder and I, go out there and just crush it, like I want to be rewarded for what I'm doing. So that was like really the drive behind me wanting to start a business.
It starts a business, but it doesn't get you to 9 locations. Love that. First of all, I mean, especially, for all of us entrepreneurs, I think we go out there to solve a problem, right? And it's normally a personal problem that starts up, that flourishes into something bigger in the world that we're actually able to help the world out with. Love you identifying that. I was recently in California. I know exactly the houses you're talking about. I'm like, dude, how much does that thing? It's insanity to open that up and then to take a risk with a family, to take a risk with kids, which a lot of people, they use that as their deterrent. Like, oh, I can't take this risk because of my family or something like that. You use it as motivation, and that's super powerful. But continue the story. I want to know, you go from there to Illinois. When did you relocate? How did you start this whole Fry the Coop concept inside of the Chicago area?
Yeah, and I'll try not to make it like too long of a story, but essentially I moved out. I grew up in Chicago. This was my family here, network, everything, but we just couldn't stay in the winters. We moved to California, did not think I was coming back. My wife and I were in California for a little over 5 years, just absolutely loved it. We were in Southern California in a little town called Temecula, which is wine country. It's about 72 wineries were in our town, just picture perfect, literally. And my best friend slash now partner, he is in real estate. And so I was picking his brain like, hey, I need help signing a lease for this dream of mine. And I just kept striking out in California. And people would be like, hey, you seem like a nice kid, but I'm not giving you like $500,000 to open up some restaurant that you're probably going to fail at. And my buddy was just like, hey, out of nowhere, he calls me up one day. He goes, hey, I got a vacant restaurant in Chicago. He goes, I could literally get you a signed lease like tomorrow. He's like, but you'd have to move back to Chicago. And so I had to kind of go to my wife. We just bought our first house. We just had our first kid. And, I get this baby and I'm like, hey, would you ever want to move back to Chicago to do this? So my wife fully supported me and was like, hey, if this is your dream and this is how we're going to do it, like I'm in, and I'll, we'll move back cross country. And so a lot of credit to her for giving me the runway to actually do that. But it was kind of like putting all our chips in the table, and like going all in, because I kind of felt, and I still do, it's like, it's kill or be killed out here, and you have to, I have this like fear in the back of my mind that if I fail, like my family dies, like they don't eat, I'm not able to provide for them. And like, we're going to be living under a bridge, and so that, to me, that like fear of poverty and being poor is like my fuel to just grind every day. But literally, when I was writing the business plan for Fry the Coop, I kind of realized that this was more than just a one location, deal. Like this was a scalable concept. And so I kind of promised my wife, I said, hey, we're not moving back to Chicago for me to build a job for myself. Like I'm actually going to build like a brand and something that's going to like change our lives forever. So going into it, I kind of learned about the whole start with the end in mind. And I got a hold of a great book called Finish Big. This was one of the first books written about exiting a business. And so, in the book, it really talks about, there's 4 things that are going to happen. And no matter what, you're going to exit. They're either going to pull you out on a stretcher, you're going to sell your company, you're going to pass your company down to maybe like a family member, like your kids are going to take it over, that kind of thing, or you're going to fail. So, but either way, it starts out the book by saying like, you are going to exit your business at some point. So you might as well start planning it now. And so you're better off in the future when that day does come. And so before we even, like while I was writing the business plan, I was already kind of writing in the exit strategy in that, so before we even started. So I kind of knew as I'm writing up this plan that basically this was a scalable concept. And I promised my wife, when we go to Chicago, like I'm going to open up. At the time I was 15. I'm like, we're going to open up 15 locations and I'm going to work on doing that. And I'm going to have this like, big business that'll basically, pay for our lives and our future and hopefully give us some financial freedom.
Joe, I want to tap into that a little bit, right? Building to sell, building the business so that it sells. When you started absorbing that book and then you're looking at your business plan, what were the changes that you had to make so that it wasn't a single idea of a location or a single location idea, but more of a concept to sell? Is there specific aspects that you need to look at that made sure that it was structured for multiple locations?
Yeah, 100%. Well, the 3 things that I learned was that you have to have a great service. So there was 3 pillars: great service, a great product, and then great financials. And that's kind of like, I think the key for every business is if you don't have those 3 things, you will never make it. Like maybe you'll get away with a great product for a while, but if you're really treating your customers like crap and you're not really living through that promise, you're not going to build a brand, because to me, brand is really trust. Do your customers trust you? And so if you're not giving that great service, you're not going to have the brand. If you don't have a great product, you're not going to go anywhere at all. And then great financials, you might have the best service in the world, you might have the best product in the world, but I'm sorry, if you don't have a back end office where your financials are lock, stock, and smoking barrels, your company will never, ever make it. So those were kind of the 3 big things that we started the company with. And then the other big thing that I did with 1 location only, no money, is I hired a publicist. So I had known, I listened to a lot of New York restaurateurs. And in New York, you kind of have to hire a publicist because, there's so much competition. The rent is so high. If you're paying 30 grand a month in rent to be in Manhattan, you have to get people in the door. So they all hire publicists. But I always thought like a publicist is for like, a celebrity. Like why would a restaurant need a publicist? So I dove into it a little more and I kind of realized like, this is how you get on TV. This is how you get written up in the newspaper. This is how you get written up on this or that. And so just took a leap of faith. And not many restaurants in Chicago, by the way. And I would even say even outside of like New York, LA, like not many restaurateurs hire publicists. And I think that's a huge like mistake you're leaving on the table, because that's like brand is everything. And if you're not building your brand and you're not getting notoriety from different media sources, like you're gonna be fighting hard. And so we hired a publicist, and I think that kind of helped us build the brand faster, I would say, than it takes to do just by grinding it out. And now we're here 8 years later, and we still have our publicist on board.
That's awesome. And it brings up one of the factors you alluded to, which is trust, right? Recommendations are all different. If I get recommended for financial advice by a homeless man on the corner, there's not a lot of trust there for me to actually listen to it as advice, right?
Yeah.
But if I get recommended financial advice from financial advisors doing millions of dollars, I have a high level of trust there. It's the same thing with your publications, right? As a brand new business, you need to build that trust in the consumer's eyes. And if you as the owner are the only one talking about the business, it's like, hey, does he just want to take my money for the business, or is his food actually that good? But if you have Forbes, New York Times, and all of these trustworthy publications talking about your business, it breaks that boundary of trust very, very quickly. Some people are doing this today with influencer style advertising, where they get an influencer that somebody trusts, leveraging them to talk about their business, and that breaks them through that wall of trust. But awesome backstory, and love the 3 points of service, product, and then financials. I think is huge. Everyone needs to take that in. And then 2, having that unique angle in the Chicago area that you realize was lacking, but was leveraged by the big dogs, was leveraged by the successful people doing it in the more competitive areas, allowed you to kind of break through the mold. So what does Fry the Coop look like today? I know we talked about 9 locations in Chicago, but give me a little bit of breakdown of the business, some of the unique selling propositions that you guys have, what makes you a little bit different, and tell me, what does the business look like in 2025?
Yeah, great. So we got 9 locations, as you mentioned, sprinkled around the Chicagoland area. Literally, like it almost looks like we did it on purpose, but we go after second generation restaurants. So if you look at a map or Google search, like Fry the Coop, Chicago, like you can see they're almost like they look like they're strategically spread out, So we're spread out pretty equally around the Chicagoland area, which is a huge market, which is awesome. We have a little under 200 employees right now. We have a full office. So we have a director of operations. We have 2 district leaders. We got a financial director, accounts payable now. So we have a whole back end office, bookkeeper, financial associates, like HR department. So we have like a whole back end office, and we're kind of laying the groundwork. Like I'm almost like heavy right now on our support, but that's because we're growing the company. And now our audacious goal is to open up 75 locations over the next 10 years. And this is not through franchising. This is all on our own. We want to build the company up to be doing about 150 million in revenue every year. And on average, our stores do about 2 million a year. So, you can do the quick math, 75 stores times 2 million gets us to that beautiful $150 million a year in revenue. And then also to kind of keep going backwards, like companies that do 25 million in EBITDA, they really get to, soar and talk about, building a company that's sellable. You can take a company public at 25 million EBITDA. You have every private equity company getting in line to, either purchase or invest, get involved. And the world's pretty much your oyster at that point. So that's kind of our goal, is to get to those 75 stores at 25 million in EBITDA. And then that'll kind of open the world up for us. So, and we want to do it all around the Chicagoland area. Like I don't have these there's a book written called Small Giants, and I just love the concept around small giants because, I think in Chicago, we can be that small giant where when people come into Chicago, they have to try Fry the Coop. It's kind of like the In-N-Out burger of like the West Coast. We want to make it like that much of a staple and an impact in our market here. And it's great. There's probably over 350 neighborhoods all around the Chicagoland area. Spans about an hour and a half in every direction. But we think we can accomplish that. So that's the path we're on now. And we're about to open our 10th location in about 6 weeks. And then I already got 11 locations coming up after that. And we're building a commissary. So the new location that I'll be working on after this has a storefront, 2,000 square feet, and then an 8,000 square foot commissary. So we will bring all our prep teams there. We'll kind of prep all the food, kind of control all the food operations better, and then we'll start to self-distribute. So it kind of gives us some more buying power, gives us some more leverage to control the product, and then ship it out to every store. And last thing I'll say is consistency is everything in the restaurant business. And so having this central commissary will really help us like key that in, where everything will be the same.
For the entrepreneurs and business owners listening right there, that is a financial projection model that is incredibly accurate and is needed to be successful in the long term. You notice how when I asked Joseph here, kind of what does the business look like today, he purely broke down the financial structuring of it with a little bit of tinkering of how to actually operate the business on the consistency and the operational standpoint. The financial modeling for that gives you a clear direction of what kind of business you're going to create. What are the margins that look like in your internal business, and how can you do this at scale? So like he said, brings in consistency to it. Super powerful, Joe. I mean, seriously, that your visionary of this is amazing, right? To be able to actually see, starting off and tell you, right, 15 locations, but today on the call, it's 75, right? And that's possible through the systems and operations that you're doing here, everything down to how you're looking at your acquisitions of new locations to the actual operational structure of the business. I want to dive into a little bit deeper into the Fry the Coop individual locations and talk about how you make that a unique product and a unique business, so that when you're comparing yourself to KFC or another fried chicken location, that someone's going to pick you over somebody else. When you're building this business, how did you ensure that there'd be no question that if someone's in the Chicagoland area and they're looking for good fried chicken, they were going to pick you?
Yeah, 100%. And so like at our locations, we've made the chicken sandwich the hero of our story. And that's like pretty much the main thing we do. Everything we do is boneless, and everything we do, we fry it in beef tallow. So everything's double fried in our beef tallow. And then we really like our menu is really, really small. We have probably maybe 16 items now on our entire menu. And a lot of them are like, 4 different sandwiches or 5 different sandwiches. We have chicken tenders, chicken nuggets, chicken and waffles, but it's really all around this like really small menu, a really like consolidated kitchen. And we want to make the hero of our story just that, that like one thing doing it really, really well. So that was kind of the point from the beginning, is we didn't want to have this like huge menu and half-ass this or half-ass that. We wanted to really kind of hone in and do what we did really, really well. The other thing is like, starting with the problem, I can't stand fast food. It hurts my stomach when I go out and eat fast food. We all do it, when you're in a rush or whatever the reasons are, you're getting fast food. It's cheap food, and it has ingredients in it that are not good for you. And if you go back to the 80s, 70s, like the ingredients that fast food had in their food were very different than they are today. So I think that's a big problem, because, all those food dyes, the corn syrups, the seed oils, they're just not good for you. They're not good for your kids, and we're all consuming them at some point. So I always thought, how could we make real food with real ingredients that, maybe it's a couple dollars more, but it's better for you, tastes better, digests better, that kind of thing. And also too, like I hated getting like a little cheeseburger at a place and some small fries, and, you're like hungry after you left. Like when you come eat a chicken sandwich at Fry the Coop, like you are stuffed. I had someone at a party argue with me that they need to be cut in half because they're so big. I'm like, they're not that big. But he was like, my wife and I can't, we can't eat each a whole sandwich. You got to cut that in half. I'm like, okay, all right. So that kind of being on the product side, but customer service, I made sure was like number one. One thing I love about Costco is that you can return anything at any point to Costco, and they will refund you. Talk about brand trust. You can buy something at Costco, and if you don't like it, even 2 months later, you can take it back and be like, here, and they'll give you cash refund right there, no questions asked. So it lets the consumer really be like, I could buy anything at Costco and not worry about it because I know Costco's got my back in a way. And we kind of felt the same way at Fry the Coop. It was like, we guarantee happiness or your money back. If you got a problem with your food, no problem. Here's a refund. Also, here's a coupon for next time, come back in. Let us treat you to food next time. I'm so sorry you had a bad experience this time. So we're always like guaranteeing that smile when you walk out, or like it's your money back. And I've gone way above and beyond to train our team over and over and over again about having great customer service. And I always use that word, great customer service, because we don't want to be just average or even just good. You have to be above good. And I really think it's important that every guest that walks in, they get someone says hello to them, makes them feel welcome. They come in the space, making them feel like they belong there. And then, what can I get you during your meal? Like most fast food, fast casual places, you don't have someone touching your table. And we kind of push our managers like, hey, get out to the dining room, touch tables, like go around, ask customers how it is. You can tell when you walk up to someone's table if they're having a good experience or a bad. And if they're having a bad, it's like an opportunity to be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? What's wrong? Your food's too spicy. There's a hair in your food, whatever it is. Let me make it right with you. Oh my God, it's your birthday today. It's your kid's birthday. Let me get you a milkshake, on us. Just little things like that like deliver such a great experience, where you feel like you're kind of in this like you're almost at home. And then the decor too, we meet up with every historic society, every restaurant we have, and I get as many pictures of the history of the town that we're in, that I can print, frame, and put on the walls. And then we have a little tag underneath it where it says like, the intersection of where this was, what year it was. So I kind of bring in the history of every neighborhood, which is kind of cool because I think some people are like, oh my God, that's right by my house. That used to be a farm, or that used to be a barn over there. Like, no way. So it's pretty cool. The walls are just covered like head to toe and old kitchen utensils and then pictures of the history of the neighborhood.
Joe, I got a question for you at the end to kind of get into a little bit more of how your mind is structured to set that up. But for the restaurant owners, entrepreneurs listening to this right now, understand the key points that he's hitting on. He's focus 100% on the product that is hitting the consumer's hand, to the point where, he's got an insanity spice, which even on his social media, he's like, I do not recommend this one. It's hot. It's super hot. So he's got high spice, and still, because consumers, they never really know what they're ordering when it comes to spice, he can still guarantee I'll give you your money back if you don't like the food, which is incredibly powerful. And like you said, breaks through that trust boundary. Second, he's creating a resonation point to all the local consumers, especially when he opens up a new location. When a new location enters into a town, everybody questions, hey, is this a franchise concept that's coming in here just to make money and take market share, or do they actually care about my local neighborhood? And for him to go around and put in the effort to put in content to show people the local area, what it used to look like, and the development of that, and how he's there in the community now trying to help that community build, super powerful, allows you to resonate with the customers and talk about the customer service that he's actually giving back. Multiple gold nuggets there, Joe, but I got to ask you, is the scoops of beef towels really on the menu for ice cream? Because I'm looking through your social content. Yeah, I saw that video. Hilarious, man.
No, it's funny. We use what he's talking about is we use a giant ice cream scoop to basically scoop in the tallow into the fryers. Because every day when you fry in beef tallow, the tallow kind of sticks to the food a little bit. So the beef tallow will go down. So you have to add about 10 to 15 pounds. And so we use a big scoop for that. And it's funny because beef tallow in its solidified form is like a white block, and it does kind of looks like vanilla ice cream a little bit. So we were just joking around on a social media video. We threw it in a cup and we were like, hey, how would you like your ice cream? 1 scoop, 2 scoop? And we're like, just kidding. This is beef tallow.
And you gotta, if you, again, an entrepreneur, restaurant owner, you gotta check out this guy's social media. It is /Fry the Coop, and you can see Russell Brunson talks about there's 2 people needed to have a successful business. There's the operator and the attractive character. Operator structures the back end. Attractive character is what presents the business to the world. And Joe's not only the operator, structuring how his managers to speak to the tables, how to get consistency in the back end, but he's also the attractive character, developing organic social media content to put on his Facebook and Instagram to really get an in-person engagement of the location, highlighting the unique selling propositions and being very, very blunt about this is how we do business, is how we do better. I do want to hit on one point as we're coming to the end here of a little bit of operational structure of using that beef towel. Obviously, it's going to be a higher cost than any type of regular soy-based or soy-based oils that normal people are using for frying. It's a higher cost. Is that worth it for you? Do you find that putting the effort into that higher quality product to do the frying in is bringing out a better result, or is it causing a problem with your margins? What does that look like on the back end of your business?
So it definitely does cause a little bit of, if you ask our financial director, she'll say, get rid of the beef tallow. I reminded her, I'm like, hey, it is our brand and it makes our food taste phenomenal. So that's like the first core of it. But how this all came about was there's a podcast called McDonald's Broke My Heart by Malcolm Gladwell. He has a podcast called Revisionist History. And one of the episodes, I think in season 1 or season 2, It's going back to 2017. Somebody sent me this podcast just when we were building the restaurant, and couldn't have been perfect timing because we were already thinking about using beef tallow, but just like partially. And once I heard about, the story about how McDonald's used beef tallow since the beginning, even Ray Kroc in his book, he said, McDonald's, you can get a good cheeseburger anyways. He goes, but what made McDonald's special were their French fries. He goes, just this pure Burbank, Idaho potato, just fried, double fried in beef tallow made McDonald's so special to Ray Kroc, who then, eventually franchised it. But, you hear all these people talk about the old McDonald's French fries were so good. And what happened was they got bullied into changing it in 1991. There was someone who just kind of came after McDonald's saying, you're killing America with your beef fat fries. At the time, America as a general whole society, we thought saturated fats were worse for you than a trans fat. And we know now today that trans fats are way worse for you than a saturated fat. And so we've learned, but at the time they just didn't know. And McDonald's was such a catalyst. And once they changed over to a vegetable oil, everybody followed suit. Like everyone just kind of followed. And they changed the restaurant industry forever by doing that, because every restaurant now fries in some type of, cheap seed oil, and it's not good for you. And it really, there's a chemical compound called aldehyde that is created when you have these vats of oil just heated to 350 degrees all day long. That does not happen in beef tallow. So not only is it better for you if you're going to eat fried foods, you want it fried in some type of animal fat, but it also just tastes way, way better. So we went all in on the beef tallow thing, and it's been awesome. We've been doing it for 8 years, but just as of lately, I think in October, we posted a video that got 6.8 million views, which was viral. It went viral basically. And then we posted another one, got over 1 million. And people, we realized like they were interested and curious about it. They just like didn't know, and they've heard of it, but they didn't really understand how it works. So it's been cool. So since maybe, 6 or 7 months, we've been, kind of educating people with the beef tallow thing on social media. And it's been fantastic. And the other thing you were kind of talking about our social media, I think the whole, our whole purpose is to bring people happiness. And we always say that's like, we don't sell chicken, we sell happiness. And through our videos, I always thought like it's almost like how Red Bull, like they they do all these videos around like the lifestyle and the action sports. And I thought the same way with Fry the Coop. I'm like, if we can make someone laugh, make someone smile when they're watching our videos, like we've accomplished our mission, like that's our whole point, is like making people happy. And if we can spread that happiness through our food, through our restaurants, through our social media, through funny videos, like, we win, kind of thing. It's like nail on the head. So the past about a year, we've been going all in on making these like funny videos and really, trying to bring smiles to people's faces. And it's been working. It's been going well.
Again, you're hitting with multiple golden nuggets here. For the entrepreneurs and business owners that are listening, that is identifying one of the 3 core social media representations that you need to have as a business. So on social media, there's only 3 things that hit virality. It is entertainment, education, or inspiration. It's the only 3 things that you will find that will actually get people to have a higher watch time and better engagement. And each business needs to solidify themselves in that category. There's a lot of businesses that will focus 100% on education, and that works for them. But when you start breaking that ideology of what your brand is when the problems come in. And Joe here is really sitting down and it's like, hey, we are going to be the entertainment brand. We want to bring happiness to the world. And we're going to do that through our social media, through our food, through our customer service, and make sure that it aligns with everything from when a customer sees us the first time on Instagram to when they're finishing their chicken sandwich inside one of our Fry the Coops. Awesome, Joe. Seriously, just golden nuggets for the listeners here, and a well understanding of not only business, but your business and how you see the future. I have to ask, this is my final question for you. How do you find your Kaizen? For the listeners out there, and Joe, have you heard the term before, Kaizen?
Yeah, and I was going to mention this. So one of the main things that I have built our business on from day one is a Kaizen phrase and quote that, and people ask me, what's your favorite quote? And this is it. Small daily improvements eventually lead to huge advancements. And I've built our whole business on that. And it really, like my audacious goal right now is to open up 75 locations. Well, how do I open up 75 stores? Well, it starts by opening up one store, but how do you do that? You start by painting the walls. and then you know, bring in equipment one day, and then you put up your menu boards and you put up your signs, and then, you know, you get your cash register, and then one day customers come in, and then you improve this one thing, and then you build a patio, and then, you know, the patio might start with 2 tables. That's okay, because tomorrow I'm going to build some planters, and then the next day I'm going to come in and I'm going to build a fence, you know, and before I know it, I've got this awesome restaurant with this awesome patio and this great setup. And then that's restaurant 1. And then, you know, how do you get to the restaurant 2? Well, you start to, you know, just chip away. And those little daily improvements will eventually lead to 75 stores, rocking 150 million a year and 25 million EBITDA. So that's our Kaizen, is just small daily improvements, and eventually will lead to huge advancements.
I love that. I love that. Do you have any recommendations personally from your side as an entrepreneur, how they can get themselves in that mindset of Kaizen? I mean, a lot of us worry about failure. A lot of us has hesitations. And I think it's because they're constantly trying to do 10% improvements instead of a small 1% improvement. For, you know, you're very successful, you're crushing it right now. Is there anything that you would leave our listeners with some advice to shift their mindset of what they need to really go after their goals and be clear with how to find success?
Yeah. And literally, like, when you think of a goal, an audacious goal, set it for yourself. But that goal could come with anxiety, and it come with some stress. You know, when you start to think about, oh my gosh, there's so much to do, there's so many things. It's like that phrase, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. And the same thing that I think about with this quote is that it is basically, you can handle any one day at a time. So if I think about opening up all these restaurants, like, it can be overwhelming, but I don't need to do that. I need to just take care of today. And what can I do today? What kind of small improvements can I do today that will eventually lead to something awesome? So just worry about today. You can do anything one day at a time, and you got this.
I love it, Joe. I love it. Okay, awesome. Especially for our listeners out there in the Chicagoland area, how can they find you? How can they get connected with you? How can they try some of your amazing chicken?
Just at Fry the Coop everywhere. We're at Fry the Coop on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And then if you're in the Chicagoland area, we're about 15 minutes away from anywhere you're at in Chicago. So stop by Fry the Coop for the best beef tallow double fried chicken sandwich you ever had. We promise to deliver happiness every time.
Joe, you're the man. I absolutely love that. For the listeners, that website URL is going to be found below in the description. Make sure you go check it out, especially if you're in the area. I'll be in Chicago later this year. I will definitely be coming to one of your locations to try some of this amazing chicken. Joe, thank you so much for your time today. Really do appreciate the knowledge you've bestowed, kind of the operational structures you've put into place, and giving the advice to our listeners here. If you're listening and you finish this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Kaizen podcast.